It is a little after 5 in the morning, on a new stretch of American interstate, somewhere in the flat country between one city and the next. The lane closure is still up, the crew is still on site, and the asphalt under your boots is warm enough that you can feel it through the sole, because it went down about 90 minutes ago, and it has not finished cooling. It is one of the most ordinary sights in America, a ribbon of black surface running straight to the horizon, laid overnight so that when the first commuter comes through at 6:30, the road looks like it has always been there. Now walk up the line and read the machines. The paver that laid this mat, the machine that took hot mix from the truck and spread it out at a precise thickness across 12 feet of lane, has a name on the side of it that is not American. It is Vogele. You say it Furgala. A company that has been building machines in Germany since the 1830s, and today, the largest maker of asphalt pavers on Earth. The rollers working behind it, the steel drums walking the mat back and forth while the temperature falls, carry the name Hamm, Bavaria, building compaction machines since 1878. And the machine that came through here first, before any of this, the milling machine that chewed the old broken surface off this highway and threw it up a conveyor into a waiting dump truck, that one says Wirtgen. That is Wirtgen, a German company from a village called Windhagen in the hills above the Rhine. 3 machines, 3 German names, and if you go looking for the 4th, the compactor that worked the base course before any asphalt went down, there is a fair chance it says Bomag, also German, owned today by a French family firm. Here is what makes that strange. This is the interstate. This is the road that America invented, the largest public works project any nation has ever attempted. 41,000 miles of engineered highway, built by a country that at the time made every single machine that touched it. The road is still ours. The machines are not. And the story of how that happened has almost nothing to do with tariffs or cheap labor. It is a story about a decision America made without ever noticing it was making one. Start with what the interstate actually was. In 1919, a young Army officer named Dwight Eisenhower crossed the United States in a military truck convoy. It took 62 days. Roads gave out under the weight. Bridges collapsed. 25 years later, as Supreme Commander in Europe, he drove on the German Autobahn and saw what a real national road network looked like, and he never forgot it. In 1956, he signed the Federal Aid Highway Act, 41,000 miles authorized, the federal government paying 90% of the bill. When the system was finally declared complete in 1992, it had cost about $114 billion and taken 35 years, and it had consumed so much crushed rock that engineers have argued America could not quarry enough stone to build it again today. And every machine on it was American. The asphalt paver itself was an American invention. On the 15th of November 1930, a mechanical engineer named Harry Barber sat down in Aurora, Illinois, and sketched a machine that would take hot asphalt and lay it in a smooth, continuous mat. His company, Barber Green, patented the floating screed and the tamper bar, and every asphalt paver working anywhere in the world tonight, including the German one on this job site, is a descendant of that sketch. Blaw Knox built pavers in the Northeast. Barber Green built them in Illinois. Gallion built rollers in Ohio. The country that poured the interstate built the iron that poured it. So how do you measure the end of that? You measure it in 2017, when John Deere, an American company that has been building machinery since 1837, wrote a check for $5.2 billion to buy the Wirtgen Group of Windhagen, Germany. It was the largest acquisition in the history of Deere and Company, and it was not an expansion. It was an admission. Deere wanted a serious road-building line, and after a century and a half of American manufacturing, the fastest way to get one was to buy a German family business. If a giant like John Deere had to go to Germany to build a road machine, you already know this story is bigger than one company. Subscribe, and let us follow it all the way down. Because to understand why the Germans won this, you have to understand what a road actually is. A highway is not a surface. It is a system of layers. And the one that decides whether the road lives or dies is the one you never see. When that paver lays a mat of hot mix asphalt, the material comes out of the screed at roughly 290 degrees Fahrenheit. It looks solid. It is not. It is a loose skeleton of stone and sand held in a film of liquid bitumen, and it is full of air, Somewhere between 8 and 12% of that mat, by volume, is nothing at all. The rollers behind the paver have one job: squeeze the air out before the asphalt cools past the point where the stones will still move. That window is short. Below about 180 degrees, the binder stiffens, the aggregate locks, and whatever air is still in that mat is in there permanently. Get it right, and you finish at 93% of maximum density, and the road carries traffic for 20 years. Get it wrong by a single percentage point of air, and research going back to the 1980s says you have just cost that pavement roughly 10% of its service life. Stop and think about what that means. 1 extra percent of trapped air, invisible, undetectable to the eye, and a 20-year road quietly becomes an 18-year road. 2% and you are down to 16. The road does not fail on the surface. It fails from underneath. Water finds the voids, freezes, expands, and pries the stone apart from the inside, one winter at a time, until the day a pothole opens and nobody can tell you why. So the entire life of the road comes down to a man on a roller, in the dark, guessing how many passes is enough. That is the problem Europe solved. In 1974, a Swedish engineer named Heinz Thurner bolted an accelerometer onto the drum of a 5-ton vibratory roller and watched the signal come back. He found that as the ground under the drum stiffened, the vibration of the drum itself changed shape in a way you could measure. The machine, in other words, could feel the road hardening beneath it. That single insight became continuous compaction control. The roller stops being a dumb weight and becomes an instrument. Accelerometers in the drum read stiffness in real time. Infrared sensors watch mat temperature. Satellite positioning maps every pass onto a screen in the cab, so the operator can see, in color, exactly which strip of road has been compacted enough and which has not. The Germans took it further. BOMAG built a system that does not just measure the mat, but reacts to it, adjusting the direction and force of the vibration automatically, pass by pass, without the operator touching anything. Vogelé built paver leveling systems that hold the mat thickness to millimeters. Austria wrote the first national specification for compaction control into law in 1990. Germany, Sweden, and Switzerland followed. America was still running pilot programs on this technology 2 decades later. Here is why that matters. When the Federal Highway Administration finally started pushing intelligent compaction on American jobs, it did not invent it. It adopted it, and gave it an American name. And that is where this stops being about engineering, and starts being about what a country chooses to keep. Barber Green, the company that invented the asphalt paver, shut its Aurora, Illinois plant in the 1980s. The paver line was sold to Aztec, then sold on to Caterpillar, and by the early 2000s, the Barber Green name had been quietly retired. Blaw-Knox pavers ended up inside a Swedish company. BOMAG, the German compaction leader, was actually owned by an American firm out of Milwaukee starting in 1970. Passed through American corporate hands for 35 years, and in 2005 was sold to a French family group for about $446 million. America had the world leader in compaction technology. America let it go for the price of a mid-sized office building, and when Caterpillar, the most American machine company there is, wanted a real cold planer and paving line, it went to Italy in the year 2000 and bought a firm called Bitelli in Bologna. Meanwhile, in Windhagen, a man named Reinhard Wirtgen was doing the opposite. He started with a haulage company in 1961. He put everything back into milling machines. He handed the business to his sons rather than to a stock market, and the family kept feeding it, decade after decade, until an American giant had to pay $5.2 billion for the privilege of owning it. The difference was never talent, and it was never tooling. It was patience. Now be fair about where things actually stand. Caterpillar still builds pavers and compactors. Aztec still builds milling machines in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they are good machines, and Americans build them. Nobody killed American road equipment, but walk any interstate resurfacing job in this country and count the names on the iron. Watch the crew. The foreman is from the county. The screedmen are local. The roller operator has been running mats since he was 19. They are doing skilled, brutal, thankless work at 3 in the morning in 90-degree heat, coming off the mat, and they are doing it inside German steel, on German software, to a standard that European regulators wrote before America got around to asking the question. They do not resent the machines. Ask them, and they will tell you the German iron is good iron. That is the quiet part. The men on the ground know exactly what they are running, and they know exactly who no longer builds it. Look at what is left. America has more than 4 million miles of public road. The interstate alone is about 48,000 miles now, and in the most recent national assessment, American roads were graded a D+, with roughly 2 out of every 5 major roads rated poor or mediocre. So we are here. The country that invented the paver and then built the greatest road network in human history, inspired by a general who saw the Autobahn and wanted something better, now maintains that network with machines built by the people who built the Autobahn. Eisenhower brought the idea home from Germany. 80 years later, we still import the hardware. There is no villain in this. Nobody stole anything. The Germans just kept showing up. They kept the factories in the valleys where they started them. They kept the families in charge. They spent 40 years improving a single machine that most people will never think about for 1 second of their lives, and they were still improving it, long after America had decided that road iron was a commodity, a low-margin distraction, something you could buy instead of build. That is the real lesson in the steel on this job site. A nation does not lose an industry in a crash. It loses it the way you lose a house you stopped maintaining. Slowly, quietly, one decision at a time that seemed reasonable when you made it. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe. We go looking for it every week. The sun is coming up now. The lane closure is coming down. In an hour, 40,000 people will drive over this mat without ever wondering what laid it, or where that machine was built, or what it says about them that it was built somewhere else. The road is American. It will always be American. We just rent the hands that keep it alive.